Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Reviews Without Remorse. I am Joe, the hero who never gets tired of comparing sizes. My partner, as always, is Dave, whose girlfriend affectionately calls him Antonio Banderas. This is episode 73, and in this episode, the world lost a comic book legend this week, Steve Ditko. Dave and I will pay tribute. Billy Dee Williams will not be spared the fate of his original trilogy co-stars, and has been recruited for episode 9, We Shall Lament. And from the unsubstantiated rumor files, is Zack Snyder doing an unofficial Snyder Cut of Justice League? And would it actually be an improvement? Finally, let's descend into the quantum realm as we discuss the 20th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Welcome, Antonio.
Hi. Antonio, but he didn't make it. Almost none of those ants made it. There was a whole. You know what? We're gonna get to that.
It was horrible.
The horror.
Steve and I worked beautifully together. I think, as far as I was concerned, he was the perfect collaborator.
My friend, tell me about Steve Ditko. Oh my goodness, this is a loss, my friend.
So, if you want to talk about the pillars of the Marvel Comics, the people that made Marvel what they are today, it is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, if you want to put it in that respect. Now, who they are to you, you can put them in any order. But they were Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko. Those were the three that gave us the modern-day Marvel as we know it. It was Stan Lee who came up with the idea of Spider-Man, but it was Ditko who designed the costume, who designed the web shooters, who gave him the look, who gave Peter Parker a very generic, everyman look, as opposed to being this really superstar-looking kind of person, which they eventually changed to. That was all from the mind of Steve Ditko. I'm going to just say it. He is more important to the creation of Spider-Man than Stan Lee. Maybe it was Stan Lee's idea. Maybe it was Stan Lee that did some of the dialogue and stuff like that. But Ditko made him an icon. He also created the characters Dr. Octopus, the Sandman, the Lizard, Green Goblin. Then he went to create this other character, Mr. Strange. I'm sorry, Doctor Strange. And actually, one of the last things he did for Marvel was he created the character Squirrel Girl, who's kind of got a cult following amongst comic book fans for the quirkiness of the character. Swear to God. It was one of the last things he did in 1992 with Marvel before going reclusive and basically becoming the J.D. Salinger of the comic book world. He worked at Marvel. He worked at DC. His artwork, if you watched... it's kind of amazing that we were just talking about Ditko not that long ago.
Yeah.
If you watched Doctor Strange, whenever they were in like another realm or another universe or anything along those lines, everything of that, Scott Derrickson has come out and said that was all inspired by artwork by Ditko. This is what he was. He was truly an amazing artist. Very much a follower of objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy, and went to one comic book show back in the 70s, decided he'd never do it again. He has never seen any of the movies, doesn't really care to see any of the movies. He just disappeared, kept doing artwork all on his own, died peacefully, well, died sort of peacefully, but died probably in a way that he would have preferred on June 29th, and had been dead for days before he was found.
That seems to be a thing with the old comic artists, isn't it? They kind of just sort of vanish into obscurity, and I seem to recall the co-creator of Batman, Bill, did the same thing.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know much about that.
Yeah.
Bill Finger was the last one to really.
That was it.
Bill Finger. Bill Finger was a bigger tragedy because he didn't only a small before the lawsuit, before the big thing that happened a couple of years ago when they finally recognized Bill as co-creator of Batman. He was obscurity. He was the name whispered by comic book fans underground, and I believe I showed you that documentary, Bill, which is a great documentary, Bill and Me.
Yeah.
But Bill was a different matter. He tried through the years, but he just languished. Whereas Ditko, he preferred his anonymity. He liked not being well known, and supposedly, and this is where it gets funky. Supposedly, he has no family. He has never been married, and allegedly, the word is that whoever that part of his leaving behind is any art of his that he has is to be destroyed.
Wow, that's a shame. I tell you, and it is a damn shame because again, I mean, in these recent years, like you said, I mean, he is really getting his due as far as the Marvel Universe is concerned, the cinematic universe. I mean, not only you mentioned Doctor Strange and all that, the amazing visuals that went to him. Spider-Man: Homecoming paid some serious tribute to him.
The most iconic issue ever.
Yeah, issue number 33, if I remember correctly, or if my research is correct.
No, you did good, dude. That is exactly the issue. The infamous issue where he started with small panels, and every panel got bigger as Spidey lifted the weight. It was one of the most amazing bits of art ever, and is considered to be like the pinnacle of what you can do with the medium.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even the look of the Spider-Man costume, the expressive eyes. I mean, we've talked.
Him.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. The comic artists, took the liberty. Even though technically it wouldn't work that way, they took the liberty of using the eyes as being more expressive in the way they kind of squint or whatever. And we've kind of hit the age where now you can actually do that. In real life with the technology of the costume. So yeah, I mean they really are paying tribute to his early artwork.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. And I mean, I part of me wishes he hadn't gone reclusive. You have to wonder what else he could have given us in this world, but he gave us a lot. And I mean, you know what? Maybe I should be thankful. If you're remembered for one thing, is it that bad? To be just remembered for one thing, maybe one of the greatest things ever.
That's that's quite a mark to leave.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody could be a Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby had his fingers in so many different things that his legend will go on forever. But look at Siegel and Schuster, the creators of Superman. Okay, that's their one big thing. Bill Finger and Bob Kane, Batman is their one big thing. So maybe I shouldn't complain so much.
Yeah, I agree. I think he leaves a big recognizable mark, especially today. So I'd say, good for him for leaving such a mark.
That one got me in the feels, very, very much so. What's funny? Walking, jogging, biking, raising my kid, him getting bigger. None of that stuff makes me feel old. For some strange reason, whenever a childhood hero of mine dies, that's when I feel my age.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
And speaking of childhood heroes, hey, what's up with Lando?
Yeah, apparently Lando is coming to episode 9. You know what? I'm not surprised as they are running out of original trilogy heroes, frankly. And yeah, there's a part of me that's like, well, first of all, I mean, we kind of know that, if you've been listening to the show at all, you know that I could give 2 shits about episode 9, excuse me. And, if we weren't doing this show, I honestly, genuinely would not even bother to see it. So yeah, they're bringing in Billy Dee to reprise the role of Lando. Again, not totally surprising as they are running out of their original trilogy heroes, and probably because Donald Glover was such a highlight of the recent Solo. So, okay, here we go. Is he going to be treated as shabbily as the rest of the original trilogy heroes? If I had to take a guess, I'd say probably not. Whatever the reason that they might treat him a little bit better, fine. I believe Carrie Fisher probably would have gotten a better, more fair shake had she been around for the last one. Luke and Han, wow, boy, did they get scrapped and tossed to the side as far as I'm concerned. So, hey, you know what? Hopefully, Billy Dee, as long as he gets paid, what can I say? Like I said, I have no high hopes for this film, no high hopes for the character, and whatever. Episode 9, whatever. Goodbye.
Well, the funny part is I felt like when JJ was in charge, he definitely had a lot more respect for the original trilogy characters than Rian Johnson. I felt like Leia's progression to being what she was, made sense. I felt like Han's progression to where he began made sense. Maybe I didn't particularly care for the abruptness and suddenness and lack of heroics in his death, Han's death. And he left an ending with Luke. I swear to you, Joe, as much fun as we made of the Force Awakens, I really believe that J.J. Abrams left it where he did with Luke, not meaning for the lightsaber to go tossed over the shoulder. That was not how he meant it to continue on. I guarantee you that.
That's probably fair.
So yeah, I'm kind of slightly more hopeful than you simply because of Abrams. Abrams is very much a Star Wars fanboy. So I'm kind of hoping maybe he can sort of semi-right the ship. I don't see how he could possibly right it as much as it needs to be righted. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever respect for the original trilogy characters, that's done now. You can't get that back. So you might as well just try to do something. Yeah. And I guess bringing Lando back in is about the most that they can hope for. And if this is going to be Lando's swan song, which most likely it's going to be, please don't have him go out like a chump. Please.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in damage control at this point. It's funny. Just today I was watching something about, there was a little Twitter back and forth with Rian Johnson and somebody had found an old back and forth discussion with Lucas and Kasdan. Kasdan wanted to kill off Luke. To which Lucas was like, no, that's not what you do to your heroes. You don't kill off your heroes. Kasdan made the argument. He's like, but you need to raise the stakes. You need to raise the drama, the tension level. And Lucas was like, no, not by killing your hero, which I believe is why he fought against killing off Han Solo. And the point of the tweet was, here's the difference between Lucas and Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson responded with pictures of the death of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the death of Luke's parents, or and uncle rather, to which I say, but these are not your main characters. These are your supporting characters, whatever. Yes, but whatever. Abrams, you know what? I kind of thought the death of Han Solo was weak. He went out like a chump. I frankly didn't feel that it was for any good reason, other than I think that was frankly because Harrison Ford wanted to kill off the character for a long time, so he just said, okay, fine, we'll kill him off. And he probably saw it as, as being as rhyming, to use one of Lucas's terms, the death of Ben Kenobi in the original. I kind of felt like, I don't think it works exactly that way, frankly. And again, all you've done is made your villain completely irredeemable, which I have a hunch was not your plan, but that's what you did. And then, of course, Rian Johnson just completely decimates Luke Skywalker in mind, body, and spirit. And again, not for any reason except to prop up their new characters, which, again, I feel like is just wrong. That's not what you do. It doesn't make your characters look any better, frankly. It kind of makes them look weak, in my opinion. Because again, I'm not going to belabor the point that we've discussed ad nauseum, but you've made your main character look more and more like a Mary Sue, like they have had to sacrifice nothing, while your side characters sacrifice everything, including their characters. So yeah, what can we do with Lando at this point? If I had to take a guess, they will probably treat this character with more respect for, again, the reasons I said, but also because they've been so they've come under fire for how they've treated their original trilogy characters, so they might just prop this one up to the level of who knows what to say, okay, look, we learned our lesson, or we don't do that to everybody. But again, it's going to be a too little, too late, and again, this trilogy is so weak and so lacking in any overarching story that, again, it's going to amount to nothing. So, and again, I feel like I've spent a lot of time already making this point, but whatever. Lando, do the best you can, my friend, and cash your check while it clears.
That's a hell of a way to put it, but okay.
It's good to see you playing well with others again. Maybe temporary.
Okay, so is it true? Zack Snyder, again, this, like I said, this is a completely unsubstantiated rumor, but it has gotten a lot of traction that Snyder might be trying to put together his original Snyder Cut of the Justice League. Depending on who you listen to, a lot that original cut was just about completed when they decided to go back and do major reshoots to the tune of maybe 2/3 of the film. So yeah, is the Snyder Cut still out there? Is Zack Snyder trying to piece it together? And would it be an improvement over what we actually got? If I had to take a wild guess, I would say actually yeah, because at least you would have Zack Snyder's unfettered vision of the film without these sort of shoehorned in lighter moments that they tried to do at the last minute to salvage what Snyder had done. But if I had to take a wild guess, anything would be better than what we actually got, because the choppiness, the incoherence of the final product was just so obvious that if I had to take a wild guess, Snyder's cut would be mildly better.
Wow. How do you see the world with those rose-colored glasses of yours, sir? The original plan for the Justice League movie was it was supposed to be a 2-part movie. And then it was cut down to a single part. So what are we talking about here? A 3.5-hour cut of the movie?
That would still feel like half a film? Possibly, yeah.
It may not feel like half a film. They might have filmed like both of them back to back and it was only just cut up for whatever reason. Man, here's the thing. When you burn your hand on the stove enough times, eventually you don't want to touch the stove. Okay? You're gonna wear you're gonna wear the gloves and everything like that, or you're gonna step back a little bit whenever you light the flame and everything like that. I seriously would approach any Blu-ray or DVD of a supposed Snyder Cut kind of like that. Maybe like a scorpion.
Yeah.
If you grab a scorpion the right way, it's pretty harmless, but you got to grab it the right way.
Put it this way, I don't remember what I scored Justice League, but I don't even think I scored it a 5 because I don't find it to be watchable. If I had to predict what Snyder's cut would be, I would probably say at best it would be closer to a 7. Again, only because you might have a more complete structure, and that's assuming he even has enough footage to put together what I would call a complete vision. I mean, even the Donner cut of Superman 2, frankly, I find it to be very clunky because, again, you're taking hodgepodge pieces from here and there and wherever to try to put together the whole vision but you can only work with as many puzzle pieces as you've got on hand. So again, I don't think this Snyder Cut would be anything to write home about. I am just sort of saying that I think it might be mildly better than what we actually got. Because again, what we got stinks of being torn apart and put back together in a very haphazard sort of way.
The worst type of film by committee that you can come across, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what? I kind of hope it happens. There is a part of me that is curious. I admit that. Here's my hope. Zack Snyder, if you're listening, don't put your name on it if you're absolutely positively not proud of it, if you're absolutely positively not feeling like this is the story you wanted to tell. Don't just do it because some Warner Brothers execs begged you and gave you a large check, okay? I feel like the Donner cut of Superman 2 suffered simply because he didn't get to film all the scenes he wanted to film, and he had to make do with what he had.
Sure.
So if Snyder does the same thing, he's not going to save his reputation. He's going to make it worse. So I hope he's smart enough to know that. Even if he comes up with something bad, at least we could at least say, okay, well, that was his vision. I get where he was going now. Still sucked or whatever.
Exactly. And listen, Batman v Superman was dreadful. I think the Justice League was even worse. The best you could hope for is that we will raise this up to dreadful.
So, how long have you been Ant-Man again?
Not long. It just sort of happened.
I wish I could fight bad guys like you.
I seem to mess it up almost every time.
Maybe you just need someone watching your back.
As Scott Lang balances being both a superhero and a father, Hope Van Dyne and Dr. Hank Pym present an urgent new mission that finds the Ant-Man fighting alongside the Wasp to uncover secrets from their past. Written by Chris McKenna, Eric Summers, Paul Rudd, Andrew Barrier, and Gabriel Ferrari. Based on characters created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Directed by Peyton Reed. Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp. I liked it. It was fun.
I liked it also. I pretty much assumed we would both come back and say we enjoyed it. But how much? Is it better or worse than the original?
You know what? Slightly better. Slightly better, but in some ways worse. But we're going to get to that. Chances are I'm going to probably score this exactly the way I scored Ant-Man, because on a whole, the plot was fine. There was nothing wrong with the plot. It was definitely a continuation of the first one. I had kind of a tiny problem with the fact that they had the ending. It's like if you watched Ant-Man and go to Ant-Man 2, there's a gap. There's a huge freaking gap between the ending of Ant-Man and the beginning of Ant-Man 2. Okay? That you have to fill with Captain America Civil War.
Yes, I would agree with that for the most part, yeah.
Now, my problem is that at the end of Ant-Man, Hank Pym was happy with Scott. He saw that Scott and Hope were hooking up, and he was kind of like, but you know what? Okay, could do worse. To all of a sudden, here we are at the beginning of the movie, and they treat him with such contempt in the first part of the movies.
Yeah. It
was jarring. And a part of me kind of felt like, all right, I understand exactly why, but I kind of feel like that didn't get explored very well. They tried to kind of backfill it with dialogue and exposition and everything like that to make sure that the audience understood, and I get that. But it was such, after just watching the first Ant-Man, to go from that ending to this, it kind of put me off for just a little bit. Not very long, but it was just jarring enough. And I'm aware of the larger cinematic universe and the progression of the characters feeling the way they do about him going to Germany and fighting with Captain America and stuff like that. I get it. That's fine. I do understand it. But from a filmmaker point of view, I just kind of felt it was such a jarring difference from the ending of the first Ant-Man that it almost kind of turned me off to the whole idea of a larger cinematic universe, weirdly. Because now it's kind of feel like I got to collect them all. It's back to the 80s comic books where, there's 5 different crossovers and so on and so forth. And God forbid you miss this one crossover, because then that huge characterization, and of course they always put it in seen in issue such and such of such and such that you have to go back to when they reference it. And
it's funny. I know what you're talking about, and I did have a similar feel, maybe a little different. I did sort of feel like the fact that they were all annoyed with him, and I've always sort of criticized, when they do sequels, there tends to be that, how do we fill the first third of the film? Well, we got to do the whole let's get the band back together kind of stuff. And here that's sort of what we're doing here. And for some reason they're treating him like he's the Yoko Ono of the band. And again, I didn't quite get why they would be so upset, because again, they said that they were on the run. Well, why are they? I really didn't quite get why they were on the run. If Scott stole their tech and went off and did something, why do they feel that they are under the gun now because of that? Having said that, though, I didn't quite feel that big gap that you were talking about because, frankly, I felt like even if you didn't know about Civil War, Scott Lang was fresh out of jail. He's running around doing things that, he probably shouldn't be doing, which would include blowing up buildings. So even that alone, frankly, could have put him under house arrest for 3 years. And even then, I would frankly find that to be a little, they went a little easy on him, frankly. So I didn't find it as jarring as you, but yeah, just that little kind of, that looming feel of, oh, they hate me now, even though I came to the rescue for them, in the last film. Yeah, that was a little off-putting. Having said that, though, they kind of, and actually, I'll even do you one better. They should have sort of gotten past that a little quicker. The fact that, again, they call him in because he had a vision that had to do with rescuing his wife. You'd think they would let bygones be bygones and say, okay, Scott, come on back in and let's get back on track. No, they do sort of let that hang there for a while. That, we're on the run because of you. We lost everything. Yeah. Well, you seem to be doing fine, frankly. You happen to be the only two people that have the perfect amount of technology to completely be under the radar, and it works. So you're not that inconvenienced, frankly. Again, I still don't quite get why they are the ones who are on the run because Scott took his tech. So anyway, I agree with you there. The step off is a little quirky.
Yeah. But then after that, it becomes fun, as the first one was. It's not... the Ant-Man movies are definitely not ones that you're supposed to take as these giant, spectacle. Well, but and the weird part is one of the things I really enjoyed about the movie, I loved the imaginative ways that they used the shrinking powers in this movie.
Yes.
I thought that was great stuff.
Absolutely. They really did take that to the next level, I think, with this one. I mean, in the first one, he's tall, he's small. Fine. And they kind of just did all the things, a lot of what you could do with that. Here, they really did, like you said, they went all over the place. He was gigantic. He was tiny. He was mid-size. I mean, and a lot of funny parts with the quirky, tech not working too good.
Hiya, champ. How was school today?
Hey, have a nice day at school, sport.
Yeah. You want a juice box and a string cheese? Why, do you really have that?
That's just Paul Rudd being really good with comedy. So yeah, the visual effects were outstanding, very well staged. You can't really have a problem with their imagination when it comes to that. Joe, every single new Marvel movie where they use the Benjamin Button younger looking visual effects for characters, you have me more and more convinced that maybe Harrison Ford should have just played himself in the Han Solo movie, because god darn, that opening with Michelle Pfeiffer and young Michael Douglas looked really good.
It really does. I mean, it was amazing. The funny part about Michelle Pfeiffer is, frankly, she's still looking pretty good. So I'm wondering if that made it easier. But yeah, I mean, she was looking like she did in the 80s. I mean, it was another actor comes into the fold with the younger, the de-aging, and boy, do they nail it out of the park.
Just outstanding stuff. It must be expensive. That's got to be what it is. It's got to be like very expensive to do, so they only use it sparingly. But whatever it was, God, it looked really, really good. And I thought that was great. Here's another thing I'd like to compliment the movie about. After the first movie, now as we all remember last week, ladies and gentlemen, I was tickled pink by the character of Lewis. And when he came along, when I saw he was back in the movie, I was very excited. But then, I didn't say this last week, but there was this thing in the back of my mind oh man, they're not going to overuse the story thing with him, are they? Because that would really, really they only used it once in the movie, and it was perfect. Exactly perfect the way it was.
And they held it till almost the end, too. It was almost it's almost like there's you thought we forgot about this, but here you go. They gave you one. Yep.
And it was absolutely the right moment to use it, the right way to use it. Just, God, I loved it so much. So he had to rely on him being, he became almost the audience for a little while, because now he's the one that's along for the quote unquote ride and having to deal with shrinking and getting big and freaking out, everything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I very much appreciated that. Michelle Pfeiffer was great. The bad guy. The bad guy. Look, I liked Walter Goggins. That's the actor who plays like the kind of sort of main bad guy in this. Sonny Birch, or Sonny Birch, excuse me, whatever. I liked him in The Hateful Eight. I haven't liked him since. I didn't like him in Tomb Raider. And here, his little drawl thing is starting to kind of get on my nerves.
Yeah, it's funny. Normally I usually avoid a lot of the other reviews until we've talked about it because I don't want to be tainted. But I was feeling pretty confident about how I felt about it, so I kind of let myself indulge a little bit. And he seemed to keep coming up as the weak part of the film. And I definitely felt that too. Like even when they first introduced him and she was going to get the tech from him and all of a sudden he was the bad guy. Again, my criticisms of the first film was that they were very familiar tropes. Here, again, I saw that and I'm like, oh, there it is. There, we're gonna we need a bad guy. So introduce this guy who's, that felt very paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Having said that, I didn't really mind him so much as a character, and on retrospect, his character with all of his minions, frankly, they were responsible for all of the action scenes. So without him, I don't know what you do. You have a pretty straightforward, linear story without him. So again, every action scene, every scene in the film where you're watching the fighting and kicking and the running around, it's all because of that character. So they needed someone to sort of play that kind of goofy side character so that you'd have some action. So
yeah.
I don't know how you I heard people say you could take him out and it's just the same. Well, not really. That's a lot of action that you would not get without him. So I don't know how you go, you work around that.
It's not a matter of working around it. It's the way the characterization was done. I never took him serious as a heavy. I that was really my problem. I haven't listened to any of the other reviews. My thing was he was never a threat. Ghost was more of a threat. I felt more of a threat from Ghost than I ever did from the Birch character.
Yeah.
But then, the Ghost character has that, what a twist.
What a twist.
She's not really bad. She's just desperate to live. And there's Lawrence Fishburne as Dr. Bill Foster is actually trying to help her.
Yeah.
I get it. I get what they were trying to do. And I kind of like that. I like that they took the idea that the bad guy isn't quite the bad guy you think it is. But then you should have had the Birch character be stronger, I think. He never really crossed over. He never made me feel like he was a real threat. To me, he was more a nuisance. And like you said, he was just a plot point. He's just to drive the actual plot across to get some action in there, because without it, if he didn't do what he did, we couldn't feel sympathy for the character of Ghost by the end of the movie if she had been like a murderer. Like the one thing that she never did, she never killed anybody.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and I completely agree with you. See, it's kind of weird. The film is a lighthearted film, so should they have made him scarier, more dangerous? Should he have done that usual cliche where he maybe murder somebody in cold blood, right at the beginning, so you could see how bad he is? I don't know, because again, this film it's not really that dark, so maybe we don't need that. And then I like the idea again. The opening. She goes to see him. The fight breaks out because now he's going to double cross her. Then in the middle of that, Ghost shows up, and Ghost, that's the one that does look very chilling. Well, it's like, wow, that one is doing some scary stuff. And, that's the real formidable opponent here, which, again, now makes the first guy look even sort of sillier and just more of an annoyance than anything else.
Right.
So I get you that character doesn't really, I guess, never really morphs into a good, solid character. It never transcends just the kind of goofy, annoying side guy for some action. Yeah, I get you, but it didn't annoy me as much as it annoyed a lot of people. But And again, I'm not really positive how you deal with that. Should you have made him more violent, more dangerous, more scary? I'm not sure. And then again, I also agree with you too that as the character of Ghost starts to reveal, you see what her deal is and what her motivation is, and then Lawrence Fishburne, who you're not sure if you like in the beginning, and then he kind of turns bad, but then he kind of, it seems, I mean, Marvel does a good job of fleshing out their bad guys and showing you their motivation and saying, like, okay, I could see why somebody would go off on that tangent. She is no different. I mean, she's in this situation, and God knows you'd want to fix this, and God knows you'd be angry with the world at that point. So maybe as when she started to become more sympathetic, the other guy starts to look sillier. Yeah. So yeah, it is a weird thing, and again, I'm not really positive how you fix that.
It's hard to say. I don't know if it's the way the actor played it. I don't know if it was just a bad director choice. I'm not 100% sure. But it was a weakness to me. It wasn't maybe as offensively weak as maybe these other reviewers think that it was. I just kind of felt like he could have been more of a threat. And the fact that here's how you could have made him a threat, and it wouldn't have even been that much. The whole thing with the truth serum, as funny as that sequence was, the whole thing with the truth serum, if he had just gone, if he had gone in there at first and maybe like hurt one of the guys, either Dave or Kurt, if he'd hurt one of those guys, like shot them in the hand or something like that, something harmless but harmful, I feel like that would have elevated his character as, okay, this is a guy you don't mess with. All right, as opposed, but I mean, this is Monday morning quarterbacking. It's very difficult for me to say, especially since we've just come off what is arguably the darkest Marvel movie to date,
right?
And then along comes this lighthearted one, at least until the mid-credit sequence, which we're going to get to. And it just, I just would have preferred that he felt more like a threat. He never felt like a threat to me. And that was really what the problem was.
I agree with you that, and I'm remembering, like, I feel like I've seen this before where these bad guys, they never rise above the level of buffoonery, because, like you said, they're afraid to take them down dark alleys. I heard one reviewer call this film a palate cleanser after Infinity Wars, and I thought, that is pretty fair. And I would probably guess that was a lot of the motivation of not letting this one get too dark. Let's keep this one light. We darked the hell out of everybody with the last one. Let's keep this as light as possible, and they do. To the point where I do agree with you that the film, even beyond this character, there are moments that kind of just hit levels of silliness. And again, I'm not going to ding it too much for that, because I know what it's trying to do. We have given these films credit for, being able to sort of dip into certain genres and work on a level, beyond just a superhero film. And I think that's what they're trying to do with this one. They're trying to really capitalize on the comedy aspect of this character. I mean, this is a character you can do funny things with. So they're trying to keep it, pretty family friendly, I think. So again, does it hold it back from achieving a level of greatness that some of the films have? Maybe, yeah. But again, I kind of feel like there's a sort of a counter argument that you have to sort of give it respect for staying true to the genre that it wants to be. It's pretty much, of the Marvel things, I think this is probably the more family friendly, funny, films, as opposed to some of the others.
Yeah, very true. I mean, and evident in what you could say is the heart and soul of the entire Ant-Man series, which is the relationship between Scott and his daughter Cassie. The stuff that happened between Scott and Cassie throughout the entire movie was always wonderfully charming to me. And that's the chemistry between Paul Rudd and the young actress. Her name is Abby Ryder Fortson. I thought that all the scenes with the two of them in it were just pitch perfect, lovely, charming. I found it to be the most compelling part of the movie, personally.
I completely agree. I mean, that is the heart of the story, like you said. Yeah. And incidentally, by the way, I didn't realize just how big of a character Cassie was in the comics.
Oh yeah, she's huge.
Yeah.
She becomes a young Avenger at one point.
Yeah, so I kind of like the idea that they are keeping her very prominent in this story. Just as an Easter egg, so people who know her character know that she's important. But hey, you never know what might happen down the road either. So yeah, I thought that was terrific. And again, I love even the opening too. I love the whole opening when they're crawling around together, making the giant ants and stuff, and then they're sliding down the stairs on the thing, and then again, I love the foot goes through the fence. The cops come, and he's like, you try to keep it. I'm locked in here for 3 years. I can't leave the house. You try entertaining a child for 3 years without being able to leave the house.
The only chance we've got is both of you. Ant-Man and the Wasp teaming up.
Follow my lead.
She seems more intense.
Heck, I even like Bobby Cannavale's return as Paxton, and he's all lovey-dovey and huggy with friggin' Scott.
Right.
I'm like, I love that.
Yeah.
I kind of dig that. Huge, turn from the character from the first movie, but I liked where they left it at the end of the first movie. That's like, Scott, you're not so bad,
yeah.
And like to think that like through the years he's just kind of grown to like just adore the guy because the guy is kind of a charming guy, so you gotta love that. But,
there you go.
Yeah, I love the little scenes with that. I love the little things, the little things that happen throughout this movie, as well as the big things. And the one thing this movie I feel gets right is it gets the character of Scott right. It gets the character of Cassie right. His whole situation, his friends, Hope and Dr. Pym, didn't like them in the beginning at first because of what we discussed earlier, but as it progressed, they progressed. Evangeline Lilly was fine as Hope. She's a pretty lady. She's an okay actress. I'm just going to say it. I didn't really find her emotional beats to be completely convincing, but when Michael Douglas first sees Michelle Pfeiffer in the quantum realm, wow, I believed wholeheartedly that this man had not seen this woman in 30 years and deeply loved her.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I didn't have a problem with Evangeline Lilly, and I kind of felt like her, I thought her performance was pretty good. But yeah, I agree with you about the scene in the quantum realm, which, by the way, leads me to the elephant in the room.
Here it comes. The elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen. We should get a sound effect for that.
I remember when we discussed the last film, you had a lot of problems with the physics. What did you think of the science in this film?
Joe, it's at this point where I sent you a comic where it was like, it's Pym particles, I don't have to explain anything. And I kind of like realized that I'm just going to have to embrace it. This is the ridiculousness of this particular character in this world. And I either will just never accept it and will not be able to watch the movie, or I'm just going to have to just let it go. And in this case, it got so bizarrely out there that I just was like, I'm letting it go. I got to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, frankly. And I kind of made this argument last week, and I feel like I'm making it twice as much this week.
And you know what? And you win. You last week you couldn't convince me, and at this point I'm like, oh, I give up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I said to myself, honestly, it was almost like, look, the writers are like, guys, we only got 2 hours to tell this story. If we really try to explain the entire... I mean, I in Doctor Strange, we talked about how they spent a lot of time talking about and explaining that world and how things work. Here, they're like, look, guys, we only got 2 hours. If you want fun, if you want action, we can't sit around for 20 minutes explaining everything about the subatomic realm and the quantum realm and... so yeah, by the time he went down, I mean, I remember thinking to myself, they're trying to do something creative with this whole idea. And, the quantum realm, it's an actual place that you go to. But would you, again, do you land your ship on something, find her standing there, gravity works the way it works normally, and again, the whole aging question, if she ages, then does she eat? Like, what's going on down there? And honestly, even when they first talked about the idea of rescuing her, all I could think of was like, I think she would be a vegetable. Like, if you are literally living in a state of limbo for 30 years, your brain must be mush. So I don't know, and then when they find her and she's all, oh, okay. And they did try to explain it away a little with the, evolution and adaptation, etc. Okay, all right. I'm kind of on board with that a little bit, I suppose. But yeah, you at the end of the day, you just kind of had to, to just kiss it up to God. Yes, it's comics. Just let's get back to the fun.
Yep. Yeah, definitely had to just let that one go in the end.
And even, by the way, when she comes back and she kind of heals Ghost, it was almost like I felt like at the moment Michael Douglas gets in the ship, from the time they heal her when she gets back, it was almost like, guys, we got to cut a half an hour out of this film. How are we going to do it? Here we go. He goes in, he gets her, he brings her back. She comes back, she does an ET on this girl and heals her. Boom, we're done. We got to just get this thing going.
It definitely had a MacGuffin-esque ending of, there it is, we're done.
Big time.
Moving on.
Yes.
You should have gone for the head.
Well, now it's time to talk about the mid-credit sequence.
Oh my God. I remember talking way back when about, I think we speculated on how Ant-Man would work with Infinity War. And, when does this take place or whatever. And I swear I said, you know what they're going to do? They'll just do their whole film beginning to end, as one coherent story. And the end credits, the mid credits will probably have them, yada, yada. By the time I saw the film, I was so on board with everything they were doing that I completely forgot about it. I mean, again, I was already predicting it. I totally forgot about it. Even to the point where he was in there when they go 3, 2, and there's silence. And he's like, all right, guys. I still didn't put two and two together. Now, when they cut back, I was like, what? They were sitting next to me. I was totally flipping out to the point where I almost said to myself, I felt like that took the whole movie to a new level because it totally blew my mind. And but I walked out going, dummy, you knew that was coming. Like, you predicted it. But I totally forgot about it. So I was going crazy at that moment. And when he was stuck in there, I was like, oh my God.
That was a great, great moment as far as I was concerned. So well done. I was really, really surprised that Wasp didn't make it as far as the snap. Very, very surprised. I thought for sure she was going to be in the next Avengers movie, and now we know she's not, or at least not just yet. But we also get an idea as to how they're going to fix things, didn't we?
Yeah, well, a lot of people have speculated that seems like that's going to be how we do it. I guess, yeah, but I don't know. I am very curious. I mean, if this was done to get me excited for the next film, mission accomplished, because again, I don't see how Scott's going to quite get out of there, because again, unless he's going to just sort of like look around and say, oh, look, a time portal, that'll do something, A
time vortex. And yes, that's how he's getting out. Not only is that how he getting out, that's how they're fixing the snap. Mark my words.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But again, a lot of things have to sort of come together. In fact, I'm wondering, is somebody going to find Scott, or is Scott going to get out and find somebody? I would think it's probably somebody's going to find Scott, if I had to take a wild guess. But I'm very excited to see how they do it. I don't really have any pictures in my mind about how this is going to play out.
My guess, Tony Stark finds Scott in the quantum realm somehow. That's my guess.
Maybe, kind of, but yeah. And it's funny, too, by the way, when you said I was surprised that the Wasp went too, honestly, I feel like, again, snap my fingers and half the world disappears. I feel like 80% of every character has turned to dust. There's only like a handful left that didn't. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of not exactly surprised, and frankly, I assume that the only reason Scott was spared was because he was hidden in the quantum realm.
Potentially. That doesn't explain my survival, though.
No, it doesn't, by the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick side note before we get to the scores. You may have heard that there is a place on Reddit that is dedicated to Thanos being correct with destroying half of the world in the Infinity War movie. The subreddit wound up getting close to 200,000 subscribers and actually went to 750,000 subscribers by the time the actual snap happened. The users called for the mods to ban half of the users, and I made it through the snap.
Congratulations, my friend.
I made it through the snap. It's the dumbest thing on the face of the planet, I admit, but there's just something satisfying to know that if Thanos came, I would survive.
There you go. You're the Tony Stark of Reddit.
I prefer the Captain America of Reddit. Thank you very much.
No. You go low, I'll go high.
I have wings. Why would I go low?
But, all that aside, Joe, here we are, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Joe, on a scale of 1 to 10, hit me.
This was tricky because, it's funny, and first of all, I'm not surprised, but a little surprised at how close I think you and I are on this film. I gave the first one an 8, and I remember debating on, maybe that was a little too low. Mm-hmm. I think the first one I would have given, if we're going to really get nitpicky, I would have given it an 8.2. I think this film, I would call this an 8.8, frankly, so I'm still going to just call it an 8. But yeah, I like this one a little more than the first one. I thought it was a lot more creative. They really did kind of up the stakes in terms of, he's huge, he's tiny, he's mid-size. They had a lot of fun with a lot of that stuff. Again, like we said, not a perfect film. Some of the characters are not exactly fleshed out. The science, I think, is wildly unexplained and possibly can't be explained. It just sort of is what it is.
Very touch and go.
Yeah. So, again, there's a lot of just deal with it and, go have fun. But again, I did also like the supporting characters. I thought the Ghost character was pretty well done, pretty fascinating, an interesting idea of what you can do with this kind of Pym particle-y stuff. Lawrence Fishburne was good. Michael Douglas, again, very good. And incidentally, I thought the scene where he kind of, when Fishburne said something about his wife and he kind of ran at him, we talked last week about how the Hank Pym character was a little unhinged in the comics for a while there. And I kind of feel like that, I wonder if they're trying to pay tribute to that. Because they kind of they do sort of play him as, sometimes he's kind of nice, sometimes he's very easygoing, sometimes he's a little sour and a little, rough around the edges. Yeah, hot-headed.
I agree. I thought that as well. I think that there's a lot of subtle things that this movie does that really pays homage to the original comics. For example, the character of Ghost, her father, Star, that is the character of Egghead, who was a villain for Ant-Man for many, many years. And it was just a little thing. None of the audience realized it. I realized it, and my son realized it. In fact, when he saw it, he was like, "Oh, of course."
Nice. Okay.
Right. So I love the little things about this movie. There's a lot to like about the movie, and I enjoyed it, but I still gave it an 8, and for no other reason that it was okay. It was fun. It was enjoyable. I felt that the villain was relatively disposable, but, not too terrible, I guess. I don't know. I'm maybe I'm being harder on it than I mean to be. I really, really don't. It was fun. It's a fun flick. The special effects were outstanding. The visuals were amazing. The imagination with some of the things with the shrinking, all the things that I worried about, when I said about the first movie, that's they got rid of Edgar Wright, it's and now here we are, the first time that they're doing the movie that Edgar Wright is going to be any good, And seems, even without Edgar Wright, they're still very imaginative. They still came up with great ways to use the powers, to honor the character, even though that they advanced it a little bit differently than originally. All told, it's still a solid flick, much more solid than some of the stuff that you're ever going to get. And it sounds like I'm bagging on it, but I truly don't mean to. Enjoyable, fun, solid 8. Definitely recommend that you see it.
I think, it's funny. I think you sound like I sounded last week. I mean, I kind of said, I said over and over, I said there's a lot of things in this movie that you sort of consciously just overlook to enjoy it for its charm, for its sense of fun, and that's kind of what you're reminding me of this week. There's a lot of things that you've noticed that you're like, but all in all, you had fun with it, so that's it.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you can do. But I mean, it's not perfect, because after all, Joe, who asked you?
Who asked me? This is gonna sound strange, but there's one little part that kind of, the part when he turned huge, and that guy that's been chasing him around he thinks he left the house. He's gonna get him for abusing his parole or whatever. There's a shot where he's chasing him around town at the end. I think it's right before the scene where he ends up gigantic in the bay with the ferry. The scene where he turns the corner and there he is, kind of hiding against the side of the building.
Yeah.
And then you hear like that, the balloon sound, whatever, and it starts to shrink. How did that happen? How do you blow up a 50 or 60 foot tall costume or something with air and hide it against the wall like that?
Pim particles. I don't gotta explain shit.
Yeah.
but you're not wrong. I kind of thought that was a little ridiculous myself.
I was almost like I didn't quite get what they were going for with that. They literally had it so it was standing perfectly against the wall with I think the hands were sort of turned around like it was hiding. And then all of a sudden, like it took like a split second for them to do that. So how they did that, I kind of went, eh. And I think it was sort of, and it's not even that part alone exactly, but honestly, that was sort of the moment where I was saying to myself, all right, I think they're really trying to push the comedy aspects of this film just a tiny bit. That part again was kind of where I kind of went. My brain kind of was like, no, you guys are really getting carried away, because it was that was like right amongst a lot of the stuff with the Louise character and his buddies running around doing funny things, and I'm like, guys, dial it back. You're really just kind of dancing over that line a little too much here. So it's that part plus just a little overemphasis on comedy that was just getting a little too much.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, man. That's a good one. For me, it's no offense, Mr. Goggins, but it's the Sonny Birch character. I understand what his purpose was. I don't think they fulfilled the purpose. I think this is it's not exactly the same as the character
Cross. What was his name?
Yeah, Darren Cross. Thank you very much. It not as bad, not as over the top as the Darren Cross character, but almost in a way worse, because as even with the whole moo-ha-ha-ha of the villainy of Cross, at least it was kind of like, okay, he's a bad guy, he's a threat, I could see him being a major threat. The Birch character just never felt like a threat. He felt like a comedic threat, and not in a good way. I just really was unsatisfied with his character, and felt like they could have done something different with him. You just had to have one threatening scene with the character. You could have done anything else with him after. Just one scene where I believe that this guy, oh shoot, this is somebody to really be careful with. And I never got that scene. All you needed was one scene. That was my personal opinion about that one.
Okay. On the other hand,
for your consideration, all right, I actually had two. This is like the Ulceran. I hate doing this, but I'm gonna say it anyway because we didn't talk about it throughout the entire podcast, and if we had, I wouldn't have even mentioned it. But I feel it needs to be mentioned. Holy smokes! Does Paul Rudd do a Michelle Pfeiffer impression?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You're absolutely right, because I remember as I was watching that scene, as soon as he jumped in the character, I knew exactly what he was doing because he pulled it off so well.
Yeah, like this is one of those things, you've seen it done before in movies before, where the person is pretending to be somebody else, and it can always really come across hokey. And yet, here it was, and the way he was interacting between Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly and stuff like that, I bought it. Yeah. I was amazed how much I bought it.
I completely agree with you there.
So, yeah, it's like, if the man ever deserves an Oscar nomination, that's for one of those scenes. It was just really, really well done. Truly on the mark. Mannerisms, everything. Little ticks with the face and everything like that. I don't know what the hell you did, Paul Rudd, to get that, but god damn it, beautiful stuff. But to me, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The cornerstone of the Ant-Man movies is the relationship between Cassie and Scott. I love that. Love that in the way that you loved Vanessa and Deadpool. You know, well, except not as creepy as that. Just, I really enjoy the interaction with them. I love that, you know, when it comes to all the things that he does, it's for her. The parallels between his relationship with Cassie and with Hope and her mom and everything like that. I love that. I love when you breathe such life into characters, that something as simple as, you know, father-daughter relationships in any movies can be just perfunctory, but this really has depth to it, which I love. And I will always give the movie credit for that.
I completely agree with you on all those points.
Thank you. But what about for your consideration?
I tell you what, for me, I was gonna kind of keep it loose and just talk about again how much I really enjoyed the things they did with the varying sizes. I mean, again, the effects are absolutely tremendous, and of course the part when he's like 3 feet tall and he puts the giant sweatshirt on around the school and he's running around with the floppy arm. I'm cracking up. This was hysterical. So I really, and even the scene where he blows up to the size of the room in the school, he's banging his head on the ceiling. I mean, that stuff was pretty good. I was thinking about going with that, but you know what? I kind of feel like that in the part of the film that no one really talks about, I thought the Ghost character was really good. I thought the look of the character was spectacular, and again, when she first shows up, and again, like Wasp is in that fight with the goons, and she's of course taking care of them with no problem. All of a sudden, she shows up, and that was downright chilling. I thought the way they did that, and there was a lot of really great stuff they did with that bad guy, and I kind of feel like she's going to sort of fall in the cracks of the Marvel villains. I mean, they've always said Marvel doesn't, villains is not the strong suit, but they've really sort of, kind of picked up the slack in that respect. The Vulture was spectacular. The Thanos was tremendous. Does this one reach those proportions? No, but I did feel like this was a very solid villain. So I kind of wanted to sort of give props to that. I thought they really did a pretty good job. And again, sort of almost goes exactly to the criticism that I made last week when I said, why are you doing the polar opposites? I'm shrinky, so I'm shrinky too. Why not I specifically said, find a villain that can counteract the strengths of the superhero, that can, does not play along with the strength of the superhero. This was a great example of that, where they really did that. And, it was almost like you saw the way they were sort of fighting her at the end, where they by the end, they was like, you could see how they got the hang of how to fight her, where it was like, they would shrink and rise up, and pop up behind her or whatever. So you could see how they developed, there was like an arc there where they figured out how to tackle this villain. So again, I liked that progression a lot. So yeah, not the greatest part of the film, but I did want to shine a spotlight on this villain. I thought it was pretty well done. Very well played by Hannah John Kamen, who previously was in Ready Player One as Finale, the female bad guy there. So very well played by her. Very affecting eyes. Like, she just had these amazing eyes that just expressed so well. Agreed. And I agree with you. I feel the character was an exceptional villain. Very well played. Very well executed. Bravo. I absolutely get behind that.
I was partners with Hank on a project called Goliath.
How big did you get?
My record, 21 feet. You?
65 feet.
65.
If you two are finished comparing sizes...
65.
And thus ends the review of Ant-Man and the Wasp. But that doesn't end Reviews Without Remorse, because, ladies and gentlemen, next week we are back on the Mission Impossible train with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, slowly coming into the station of the next Mission Impossible movie in 3 weeks.
Which I am very much looking forward to, by the way.
Surprisingly, I am as well. Yeah. I'm amazed that I'm looking forward to it. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, so next week we will be doing that. Joe, frickin' awesome as always, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, great movie, great discussion.
And we will see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Until then, you have a nice night. My man, have a nice night.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Leia and the Wookiee must never again leave this city.
That was never a condition of our arrangement, nor was giving Han to this bounty hunter.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
This deal's getting worse all the time.
Furthermore, I wish you to wear this dress and bonnet.
This was never a condition of our arrangement.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
And this deal's getting worse all the time.
Here is a unicycle. You will ride it wherever you go.
What? I'm not riding the f***ing unicycle.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
Also, you are to wear these clown shoes and refer to yourself as Mary.
Oh, you, man. I'm not doing it.
I have altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
This deal is very fair, and I'm happy to be a part of it.